For real. Thank you all so much for being here tonight and attending the 2024 final lecture. Each year, the Auburn student body elects the final lecture award recipient during its annual spring election. The final lecture award was created to give all students the opportunity to participate in a teaching award given on behalf of the student body, recognizing faculty who have made extraordinary contributions to Auburn University through classroom teaching and service to the university. The award recognizes one of the Auburn students' favorite professors and gives them the opportunity to present a short lecture on a topic of their choice. The event is meant to give students an opportunity to hear one final lecture from one of their favorite teachers before the semester ends and before they graduate. To be nominated and elected by students is one of the highest honors students can bestow upon a faculty member. This year, the student body elected Dr. Jeff Long to give the final lecture. Dr. Long serves in the Harvard College of Business as Assistant Dean. Dr. Long is a tremendous asset and advocate for the College of Business and for Auburn University. His career with the college began in 2012 as its Chief Operating Officer, and his previous experience includes finance and operation positions at the Golf Channel and with ESPN. Without further ado, allow me to introduce the Student Government Association's 2024 Final Lecture Award winner, Dr. Jeff Long.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. You do not understand how much it means to see everybody here in the crowd. So thank you very much. I'm honored and humbled to receive the 2024 Final Lecture Award. And really, this means so much to me because of several reasons. But the first reason is because it was voted on by you, the Auburn University School. It also means so much to me because I was a student too, sitting where you are, many, many years ago. And I graduated from Auburn, and it's also a special award because I've worked the last 11 and a half years for the Harvard College of Business and Auburn University, and the last 11 and a half years have been the best working years of my career. The last 8 years I've been teaching here at Auburn, and it is a thrill to be able to teach to Auburn students, knowing that many years ago I sat in y'all's seat. So thank you for being here. What I'd like to do is kind of set up the lecture. For the next 2 hours, I'm going to tell you. Oh, you know what? It's going to be about 25 or 30 minutes, so don't worry. Over the next 25 or 30 minutes, I'm going to talk to you, the students, about things I've learned in my career. So when I was in school, it was so long ago back at Auburn, it was so long ago, I remember rolling Toomer's Corner when Bo Jackson won the Heisman Trophy as a student. So that's how long ago it was. And believe it or not, back then I had blonde hair. Okay, that's how long it was. Technology was so different back then than it is today. The necessities that we have, that we consider necessities today, weren't even invented back then. We didn't have cell phones. Our phones were on the wall, phone booth. We didn't have the internet. It had not been invented yet in the 80s. Computers had been invented, but they were large and bulky, and really nobody had a computer, definitely no laptops. We had no email, voicemail, and on campus, in most of the classroom buildings, we did not have air conditioning or even heat. In fact, the dorms didn't have air conditioning or heat. So things have definitely changed. But what's interesting is in 25 or 30 years, you're going to look back and your kids are going to look back and they're going to see and think how little technology we had in 2024. So when I was in school, I wasn't necessarily the best student from a GPA standpoint. I felt like I had to work harder than everybody else. I would bust my butt studying and studying, and I would sometimes barely make a seat in the class. And sometimes I had to drop a class or two along the way. And I had friends that to me didn't seem to work as hard as me or study as hard as me, but they would make A's, and I would struggle sometimes to make C's. But I did one thing right. I interviewed for a job and got a job at the very beginning of my senior year when my GPA was decent. Well, I hadn't taken any of my hard accounting classes yet. And let me tell you this, by the time I graduated from Auburn, my GPA was not as high as it was when I got that job offer. Let's just put it that way, okay? So my first job was for an accounting firm in Birmingham when I graduated from Auburn. And back then, things were a lot different in regards to majoring in accounting and starting to work right away. Back then, when you majored in accounting, you work right away. Now you pretty much go and get a master's degree. So me and all my friends that majored in accounting from the Auburn College of Business, we started working right away. And since we worked for a CPA firm, certified public accounting firm, that was like the main thing we needed to do was to pass the CPA exam. And we had to take it and study for it while we were working a full-time job. And it was up to us individually to study on our own. Now you can go online and study and you can take the exam pretty much all during the course of the year. But back then, the exam was only offered in May and November of each year. And remember, the internet hadn't been invented, we didn't have laptops. So to take the CPA exam, which is a very, very grueling exam over a couple of days, everybody in the state of Alabama took the exam in Montgomery at the Civic Center. On the Civic Center floor, they would have tons of tables, and anybody that was taking the exam in the state would be in Montgomery during that time. So as I got out of school and started working and started to think about this very daunting CPA exam that I had to take, I'll be honest with you, it petrified me. I was scared to death. I didn't think I was ever going to pass the CPA exam because it's so hard and I barely made it out of some of my accounting classes. So I wasn't going to take any chances. I decided I wanted to sign up for a review course to prepare me the best I could be prepared. And I was the only one of my friend group that took a CPA review course. It wasn't very common back then. But there was not a CPA review course in the state of Alabama. The closest one was in Atlanta. And of course, I was working during the week in Alabama, a full-time job, probably 50 hours a week. So the only time I could take this CPA review course was on Saturdays in Atlanta. And for 19 straight Saturdays, I would wake up at 3:30 in the morning Central Time and get myself ready and drive over to Atlanta and be in Atlanta for an 8 to 5 p.m. Eastern class. And I did that for 19 straight Saturdays. And by the way, that was during an Auburn football season. So most of y'all know that's a very big sacrifice to miss a football season. So I pretty much missed the 1989 football season as we approach this November CPA exam day. And by the way, during the week, I would study at night after I worked. So I put a lot of effort, a ton of effort into the CPA studying and preparation. And by the way, I paid about $2,400 of my own money for the CPA review course, which was a ton of money back then. It's still a lot of money today. So let me set the stage for how the exam works. There's 4 parts. It's a little different now when students take it, but there's 4 parts. Back then, you had to pass at least 2 parts to keep anything. So if you passed 1 part, made a 75 on 1 part, and then you made below a 75 on 3 other parts, it was as if you didn't pass anything. Also, on the parts you didn't pass, you had to make at least a 50, which meant you could not blow off the parts that you're not really focused on. You had to study for all 4 parts. Because if you passed 3 parts and made a 48 on another part, you were back to square one. You didn't pass anything. So when I got my exam scores back, after taking it in November of '89, it was Heartbreak Hotel. I had passed 1 part and came within 1 or 2 points on the 3 other parts. So in other words, I didn't need to keep anything. All of this hard work, the Saturdays, studying during the week, I was back to basically square one. I didn't have anything to show for it. And by the way, I lived with two guys that graduated from Auburn with an accounting degree. They studied a little bit for the CPA exam, and both of them passed all 4 parts the first sit. So I had a decision to make then. Do I look at this from a negative standpoint, or do I look at it from a positive standpoint? And I chose to look at it from a positive standpoint. And I told myself, I've passed 1 part, I've come close on the other 3 parts, I can do this. So I signed up for the next CPA exam, which was offered in May of '90. I studied my CPA review material. I studied hard, once again, over about a 5-month period. I took the exam in May, and this time I passed 2 parts, which was fantastic because now I had 2 parts I could keep. And I still had 2 other parts to take. So I planned to take those other 2 parts November of 1990. And at that time, leading up to this exam prep period before that November time frame, I had learned that they had started an in-person CPA review course in Birmingham. So I signed up for that. I wasn't taking any chances. So I took a CPA review course in Birmingham. And during that CPA review course is where I met my wife, Lori. And we've been married 32 years. So you see, God had a plan, okay? And I didn't know it, but he was working on his plan. Had I passed the CPA exam that first time, or even by the second time, or if I'd given up, I would not have met my wife, Lori. Nor would we be the parents to our 2 children, Anna Grace and Joshua. So first lesson is during your career, you're going to have some peaks and valleys, okay? Have faith. God is working on a plan. You may not know what it is, but have faith. You'll know one day. So a couple of years after getting my CPA, I decided to start working on my MBA, Master's of Business Administration. So I was living in Birmingham at the time. So I enrolled at UAB and started my MBA. Now, at that time, I had left the accounting firm, and I had a supervisor that I worked for that several times he had tried to talk me out of getting my MBA. He told me it was a waste of time, I wouldn't get anything out of it. I remember one time he came into my office, and he had a white piece of paper, and he balled it up, and he threw it in the trash can, and he said, "Jeff, that's what your MBA is going to be worth." But you know what? He was wrong. He was wrong. And I knew he was wrong, and I knew I wanted to do what was best for me in my career. And I'm so thankful that I completed my MBA, because having an MBA has enabled me to get interviews that I would not have otherwise gotten. It's enabled me to get jobs that I wouldn't have otherwise gotten. And it's allowed me to make more money than I would have made if I didn't have a master's degree. So do not let anyone talk you out of bettering yourself. Do not let anyone say, well, you shouldn't do that, or you shouldn't get a master's degree. And you know what? Sometimes those people that tell us that are well-intentioned. They may be our parents, or an aunt or uncle, or even an older sibling. And they may say, don't get a master's, you don't need it. Don't take that LSAT. You're not smart enough to go to law school. Or medical school takes too many years. You shouldn't go to medical school. Do not let anyone talk you out of bettering yourself, and be relentless when you pursue your goals. So, first things first, most of you are undergraduates. Get your undergraduate degree. It is a big deal, okay? It is awesome having an undergraduate degree. And you may not think it's special because all of your friends are in school getting their degree. Most of your parents probably have a college degree. If you have older siblings, they may have a college degree. But a college degree is very special and valuable. Most working adults do not have a college degree, and you'll see that when you start working for companies and organizations when you graduate. Most working adults do not have one. So value your undergraduate degree and be thankful for the opportunity to study at such a great university as Auburn University. It is an honor and a privilege for us to have attended and you to attend Auburn. And whoever is footing your bill, if it's your parents or grandparents, an aunt or uncle, they have made financial sacrifices for you. They've made sacrifices, they continue to make financial sacrifices. You need to thank them. You need to appreciate what they are doing for you. In fact, I would challenge all the students in here to reach out to your parents or whoever is footing the bill tonight and call them, text them, and tell them thank you for the opportunity that they've given you. And don't ever forget what they've done for you. Once you start working, value education your whole career. It doesn't stop with an undergraduate degree. Be relentless in reaching certifications, passing your boards, whatever industry-specific training there is, be relentless. Consider getting a master's degree, okay? Be relentless in this pursuit. So the next thing I want to talk about is your first job. And your first job is just that. It's a first job, okay? It is not something you're going to be doing for the next 45 years. So don't be too picky with your first job. Most likely, after a year or two, you're going to be working a different job within that company. You may be working for another organization. You may be doing a completely different job. That's normal, but your first job is getting you great experience, and you're also earning money. So one of my roommates that I roomed with when I graduated from Auburn, one of the ones that passed the CPA exam the first time, after he became a CPA, a couple of years later, he decided to go back to law school, and he attended the University of Alabama Law School. And for the last 30 years, he's been practicing law in Birmingham. I've got another friend that graduated from Auburn. He also went to go work for an accounting firm. And he actually decided, after a few years, to go back to medical school. And he went to medical school, and he's been an ER doctor in the Birmingham area for the last 25 years. So keep your options open. The next thing I want to talk about is your career. Expect the unexpected. When I got that job in July, or when I started working in July of 1989, I actually got a job for one of the big eights. Well, what is that? It's one of the largest 8 accounting firms in the world at the time. The first week I worked there, it was announced that our firm, which was called Touche Ross, was merging with Deloitte Haskins and Sells, another big 8 firm, to form Deloitte Touche, which later became known as just Deloitte like it is today. So during that merger, several people in both of those firms, the Touche Ross firm and the Deloitte Haskins Sells firm, ended up losing their job. It wasn't because they were doing a bad job. It was just a cost-cutting exercise when 2 organizations or 2 firms merged. So expect the unexpected. A few years later, I started working for Bass down in Montgomery. And about a year or 2 after I was working at Bass, which is Bass Angler Sportsman Society, it's a fishing organization. A year or 2 after I started working at Bass, we got acquired. We got acquired by ESPN, which was awesome for me because I love sports, and I started going up to Bristol, Connecticut on a monthly basis, and it was fantastic. I would be there as they were filming live Sports Center and all that. I'd be standing behind the cameras. I loved it. Well, about a year or 2 after this acquisition, Disney and ESPN, so ESPN is owned by Disney, they decided to relocate Bass from Montgomery to Orlando. which Lori and I, we were excited. We had 2 young kids, and we saw it as a great opportunity. So we moved down with the company along with about 35 other people, but about 65 people chose not to move down, or there wasn't a job for them to move down. So they had commitments in Alabama, or their job didn't move with them. So again, people that are doing a great job can still lose their job due to mergers, acquisitions, and relocations. About a year or two after I had moved down to Orlando, I had an opportunity to join the Golf Channel as its VP of Finance and Control. So I was over the finance function for the Golf Channel, and I was over the accounting function for the Golf Channel. The first 2 years were fantastic. I loved working there. The people that had worked there had been at Golf Channel for 10 years, and they were from Orlando, and they'd been there a long time. But then that third year, something weird started to happen. Comcast, the owner of Golf Channel, started playing a more active role in Golf Channel. And actually, the first move was they replaced our longtime Golf Channel president with someone from Philadelphia, the Comcast headquarters. Soon after, they brought in a new programming person, replaced that person, had some layoffs, brought in another person from Philadelphia, Comcast headquarters, to be over marketing, let go of some people on that team. And sure enough, a few months later, they brought in a new finance person that was over my boss, who was the CFO, which was a little weird. And a few weeks after that, I remember being called into my supervisor's office and being told that my boss, the CFO, had been let go that morning, and he had been asked to leave. He had been the CFO for about 10 years at Golf Channel. Was doing a great job. But they made the decision to let him go. And they called me into my supervisor's office, and an HR person was in there, and I knew what was about to happen. And sure enough, they told me that my job was being eliminated, that they were in the process of acquiring NBC Universal, and they were going to combine all of the accounting and finance up in Philadelphia and New York. But fortunate for me, they gave me a few months to help with the transition. They wanted me to help move accounting and finance up to Philadelphia. So I was thankful for that opportunity, but it was a reminder that decisions oftentimes are made in faraway places like Connecticut and New York that impact people in Alabama or wherever you are. And it's another reminder to keep yourself very marketable. Get the master's degree, get the certifications. You never know when you're going to rely on that, when you're going to need that. So again, I had another dilemma. I was losing my job at the Golf Channel, and I could look at it one of two ways. I could look at it from a negative perspective. Hey, I'm losing my job. This stinks. I've got to go find another job. Or I could look at it from a positive perspective. God is closing this door at Golf Channel, but he's going to be opening a door somewhere else. So that gave me a peace, and I started to get excited about what was going to be the next chapter of my career. So this was around 2009. And if you remember, in 2009, the economy wasn't the best. A lot of companies were not hiring. The economy was pretty bad. And because I'd worked in sports, ESPN and Golf Channel, I wanted to stay in sports. So I reached out and I started networking. I had some great networking meetings. I met with a couple of the highest executives at the Southeastern Conference in Birmingham. Had a great meeting with them. I had a meeting with Jay Jacobs, the Auburn University athletic director. Had a great meeting with him. But you know what I realized? Just because I was having great meetings and I was networking, they didn't have jobs that were open. And they weren't going to just create a job because they liked me out of thin air. So I learned that networking is important. But when you are looking for a job, you need to focus on companies that are hiring people like you. And that could be the case for some of you college students right now. You may be talking to companies you like to work for, but they're not really hiring people. I would recommend that you start talking to companies that are hiring when you're in the job market. So the Lord opened another door for me, and I was able to become the chief financial officer when I left the Gulf Channel at Port Canaveral, which is one of the largest cruise ports in the world. It's on the east coast of Florida, about 45 minutes from Orlando. And I loved my time there. And a few years later, I had an opportunity to join the Auburn College of Business as its chief operating officer. So I thought it was just a great thing that I could go back and work at the school that meant so much to me during my lifetime. So I came back to Auburn in late 2012, early 2013. And then about a year later, I learned that I could start a PhD program at Auburn. So I began to take classes towards my PhD, and over about a 5 or 6 year period, I received my PhD from Auburn. So you're never too old to start a degree. I was over 50 years old when I graduated with a PhD. And by the way, when I came back to Auburn, although I didn't know or didn't think anything about teaching being part of my responsibilities, about 2 years after I started working at Auburn, I was able to start teaching, okay? And do you know what enabled me to be able to teach? Because I had a master's degree. You have to have a master's degree to teach. So again, another reminder that always value education during your career. So last fall, I got an email, and the email was asking for volunteers for people that would be willing to go teach at a correctional facility called Staten as part of the Alabama Prison Arts and Education Program. And I thought to myself, wow, Auburn University is part of this program that teaches classes at correctional facilities for the incarcerated, and it allows them a way to get their undergraduate degree. And I said to myself, wow, these prisoners are working hard to better themselves. I'd like to be a part of that. So starting in January of this semester, and I'm currently doing it, I'll be heading there tomorrow. Every Tuesday, I drive to Elmore County, and I teach a class of 15 incarcerated men, a county. It's a county 2810. And I've come to really care for those men in my class. And I see it as just a blessing to be able to go teach them every week. And last Tuesday, I told the students in my class, when I was at Staten Correctional Facility, I told them I was going to be receiving this award, and I was going to be given the final lecture on the evening of April 1st. And I had some index cards, and I passed them out to the students, and I said, you don't have to fill this out, but if there is something you would like me to share with these students that are 20, 22 years old, I'd be happy to do that. Or if there's something you wish somebody would have shared with you when you were, to the prisoners, you wish somebody would have shared with you when you were 20 or 22 years old. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know if they would like doing this, or maybe I'd get half the cards, but all 15 students, for the next 10 minutes, I could tell they were thinking, and they'd write, and they think, and they'd write. And I went home that night. I didn't do it while I was there, but I read each of the cards. And I want to share with you some of the things that they said that they wanted me to share with you. One person said, be mindful of how you react to disappointment. Life is full of disappointments. Don't let them stand in your way of reaching your goals. Even when you think it doesn't matter, take a second to think of the consequences of your actions. Your whole life can change in an instant. Plan for your future. Don't take life for granted. Always build healthy relationships. Stay focused. You do not know everything you think you do, nor do you have all the answers to life. Take this statement not as a critique, but use it as a catalyst to continue a life of learning as well as truly living. You may not have a life partner, significant other in your life at the moment, but you will, and when you do, remember, you can have it one of two ways. You can always be right, or you can always be happy. It's your choice. And I did not change a word on these. I did not change a word. This is how they wrote it. When all else fails, remember, every day being alive is a reason to be joyful. Drugs are not cool. That's all he wrote on the card. That's all he wrote. It is okay to be different. I wish someone stressed to my younger self the importance of reaching out to friends and family every chance you get. So as we wrap up the final lecture, I've got a couple of more slides I'd like to share with you, some unwritten rules, I call them. Just some more advice or learnings that I've learned over the years. However trivial your early assignments may appear, give them your best effort. When you start working, do not think any assignment is beneath you. If they tell you to go get coffee and donuts every day for a year in the morning for everybody, you go get the best Starbucks coffee and you go to Krispy Kreme and get the freshest donuts and get the chocolate-covered glaze. Those are the best, okay? And you do it with a smile on your face. Be on time, show up, and do the work. I know that sounds kind of silly, but you would not believe all the people that don't show up to work on time or don't show up to work. As a student, if you don't feel your best, it's easy to blow off the morning class. But when you work and you have a job and you're making a salary, people are counting on you to show up and go to work. And even though you don't feel your best, you need to show up. In doing a project at work, don't wait around for others, go after them and make sure it gets done. For example, if you need some information from a couple of people to finish your project, but you haven't heard back from a person, they're not emailing you back, etc., go find them, go search them out, go get the information from someone else. It's not an excuse to say, well, I never heard back from so-and-so. Okay, figure out a way to get the information. Truth, not gossip. Do not gossip at work. If you think you're potentially going to gossip and talk about somebody, ask yourself these three questions. Is what I'm about to say the truth? Does this person need to know this in this conversation? And would I say the same thing if the person was sitting here listening? Don't overlook the fact you're working for someone. Whatever she or he wants, it should take top priority. Okay? If my supervisor, who is actually sitting here tonight, if he sends me a text or an email or calls me and needs me to complete something, guess what? It's going to the top of my list unless I'm in a class or I'm in a meeting I can't get out of, but it's going to the top of my list. And I have appreciated over the years when I reach out to someone on my team and I need something, I have appreciated when they get right on it. So if your supervisor needs something, it goes to the top of your list. Be positively contagious. Be positive. Well, what's another example of being positive work? Let's say you work for Hoka tennis shoes. I love Hokas. I see Hokas on a lot of students. So you work for Hoka, and they've asked you to design a new tennis shoe, a new running shoe. And for 6 months, you work your butt off day and night on this design. You collaborate with other people. You are working with a lot of people, and you put everything into it for 6 months. And then you know what? At the end of the 6 months, they don't need your design. They went in a different direction, etc. You can look at that from a negative standpoint and say, I've just wasted 6 months of my career, my time. I didn't get anything out of it. Or you can look at it from a positive standpoint. Hey, I've designed a shoe. I've worked with people I wouldn't have worked with otherwise. This is going to be a great thing for my career. So that's being positive. Have fun at what you do, or at least try your best. It will be reflected in your work. Right? No one likes a grump except another grump, okay? That's another lesson. One once working, consider relocating or taking an assignment in another part of the country, or even an assignment abroad. And for you current students right now, consider going on a global trip, a study abroad trip. You will learn so much about yourself. You will learn about other cultures. I highly recommend it. And consider taking a work assignment in another country. If you're considering a master's program and you're coming down to 2 different schools in the future, one has a study abroad component and the other does not, go on the one that has the study abroad component. How do you want to be remembered? I like saying this. You can't get promoted at a Christmas party, but you can get fired. Okay? And I've seen it. I've seen it more than once. Usually you have free booze at a Christmas party, a company Christmas party. People are nervous. Spouses are there. Significant others are there. And inevitably, somebody's going to drink too much. And they're going to make a fool of themselves, and they're going to say something inappropriate, and then it goes downhill fast. It goes downhill fast. So if you're at a Christmas party, or you're at dinner with clients, or you're on a business trip, you are still working. You need to act appropriately. And by the way, it's okay not to drink, okay? Coke Zero is the best Coke ever, okay? But your actions will impact how others view you. Nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes. Learn from our mistakes, okay? And the last slide. Don't ever lose your sense of humor, okay? At work, laugh at yourself, laugh at the situation. It helps a lot. Have an attitude of gratitude while you're working. Be thankful for the job that you have. Treat others with respect at work. Show grace. You never know what they're going through. Their spouse may have just told them that morning that they don't love them anymore. Or they may have just heard from their mother who told them that the mother has cancer. Show grace at work. You remember 1/3 of what you read, half of what people tell you, but 100% of how someone made you feel. So be aware of how you make people feel. And then finally, a person who is nice to you but rude to the waiter or to others is not a nice person. This rule never fails. Thank y'all, and War Eagle.
Thank you, Dr. Long. Thank you for all you've done for Auburn students, and we sure take your words to heart as we continue to lead the student body. And at this time, we would like to officially award you with the 2024 Final Lecture Award. All right, thank you everyone for attending the 2024 Final Lecture Award. We really appreciate your attendance, and War Eagle.
So one more. My mom was silent.
That was good.
We both like.
They need.
Okay.